Howdy and welcome back to the shop. Working on a little 4.3 here. This is going in our go-kart truck, dune buggy. And you can see this is a really high mileage engine, full of sludge. Was leaking like a sieve. Now I'm not going to spend a whole lot of money on this. I'm going to put new seals in it. But while I had her pulled down, I thought it'd be a good idea to stick some bearings in these. And there's a couple of rods in here that are just flopping loose. This thing never hammered, never rattled, but I think it's the number 2 rod cap. It's just looser than a goose. So I'm rolling main bearings in right now, and I'll show you how I do that. So you don't want to use anything that would scratch the crankshaft and put a burr on it. This crankshaft does have some marks on it, but we want to run it for a little while longer. So this is just a piece of 3/8 copper. It's been hammered out. You can just get a hold of it and roll that bearing out of there. And if you're real careful with the pick, you can roll her until you can get the pick down in the oil hole, but you got to be awful careful that you don't go too deep and scratch the crankshaft. And there's the number 2 main. It still had some life left in it. So when you go to roll the new ones in, now I'm going to plastic gauge this thing, so I'm putting these in dry. So, well, I mean, there's still oil on the crankshaft, but I'm not putting any lube on these. So you've got a little notch on one side. There's a notch cut in the block, and your side with the oil groove goes into the block because that's where the oil comes from. You want your oil groove where the oil comes from. And now this is not the right way to do anything. Okay, so I've got my little notch lined up there. What happened to my piece of copper? Dad, come in. I'm going to take my little piece of copper and I'm going to drive her down until she's flush on both sides. Okay, so I've got all 4 of the mains put in it. I'm going to do the main caps and set them on there. All right, to roll the bearings into the caps, what I like to do, now these caps aren't necessarily the cleanest thing there ever was. I certainly wouldn't want to stick them in my eye. But I put my tab in the notch, pop her down in there, and leaving just a hair sticking up on the other side. Tap her on down. With a screwdriver. So the final crush of the bearing is when you torque it down. So now I'm going to start all my bolts. I'm going to double check, okay, because I stamped these as I took it apart. 1, 2, 3, rear main is rear main. F for forward, and arrow going that way, arrow that way, arrow that way. Okay, got them all turned the right way, got them all in order. Okay, now I'm going to go through and I'm going to torque this down. Then I'm going to take them off, put my plastic gauge in there, and torque them again. And I am not going to turn the crankshaft because there's no oil in it. So now I'm laying my plastic gauge on there. And this is fiddly, and I don't like doing it, but it is what it is. It's cheap and it's easy. Even if it is just a little fiddly. Now, ideally, you want to lay it right in the center So got all my plastic gauge in there. I'm going to very gently put my caps back on without hopefully knocking my plastic gauge flying. Forward 3. Forward 2. Forward 1. I'm going to run all these back down and pull torque on them again. Okay, so I've got my plastic gauge showing here, and I know you can't see this on camera. I'm running about 2 thousandths clearance on 1, 2, and 3. Number 4 is running about 3 thousandths clearance, which that's on the loosey-goosey side of everything. But this motor's got 1,000,000 miles on it. We don't care at this point. We want it loosey-goosey, but not hot dog in a hallway loosey-goosey. So here's the bearings. These are the pair that came out of number 1. Which they don't look terrible bad, but you know, they were starting to wear. So I'm going to pitch them, and then we'll get on to the rods. I'm going to go ahead and clean my goopy goop off of here, and then I'm going to give these a big drink of Lucas, just because I can. Then I'm going to torque the caps back down, and then I'll do the rods. All right, so I've got my cap set back on there loosely. Now I'm going to stick my old timing chain back on here. For whatever reason, I didn't even bother to order a new one yet. I don't know why. But I got one coming. And let's see, where are the bolts? Of course, the bolts for the timing chain fell plumb down in the bottom of the bolt can. I'm going to put the timing chain on here. I've not torqued these caps yet. I'm going to roll her over 4 or 5 times and get my Lucas oil kind of distributed around on those bearings. All right. Now let's pop number 1 and number 2 off of there and see what they look like. Well, the rain's back. So these are about like I expected. They're fairly wiped. This oil's been run dirty a time or two. Got little pockets. Come on, baby, focus. Anyway, maybe you can see that, maybe you can't, but there's little pimples looks like all inside of these bearings, and that's from dirt. Been ran too long between oil changes, and the oil filter has bypassed and allowed dirt to go through the system. So I'm going to kind of the same deal. I'm going to roll new bearings in there, put them in dry, and then plastic gauge them, and then pour Lucas oil all over everything and put the cap on it, roll it over a time or two, and keep it partying along. So anyway, I thought everybody might like this. This is not the right way to put bearings in a rig. Right way is pull the heads off, do it right. But we've got this block out of the truck. We've got her apart. We're putting new gaskets in it. Spend $20 for bearings and another $20 for a timing chain set. These bearings were really cheap. They're solid aluminum bearings made in Israel. So, they're cheap bearings, but they're probably fairly good quality, being they're Israeli. They're pretty good about protecting their name. So anyway, give us a big fat thumbs up for taking the trouble to film it for you. And in the meantime, y'all drive safe and watch for deer.